everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, clicking on this video. I am back to get my planet series finished up finally. I've definitely had a lot of fire under me, just mentally and spiritually, to get this finished. There's a lot going on in the world, and if you've watched my previous videos, you know that part of the big reason why I study astrology and have been for all these years is because it's really helped me transform my way of thinking. So I do highly encourage, if it's your first video, again, thank you, but I do also encourage that you go back, take a look at my other videos, starting with Mercury. There are lots of good information, breaking everything down as far as all aspects of each of our planets in the solar system, how they affect us. Uranus, 7th planet from the sun. We're going to start off with some quick facts. Uranus's orbit, its journey around the sun is quite a journey. It is very far from the sun, again, with it being our 7th planet, and then we have, great big Jupiter and Saturn, and that big gap of space between the sun. Uranus is pretty far out, okay? That leaves its orbit about 84 years, a little over every 4 years it takes for it to do its complete orbit around the sun. Now, not only that, excuse me, but Uranus axis, it does not sit like others. It's almost horizontal completely. It's not all the way at about 0 degrees, but it's about at 8 degrees where it sits. So when it hits the sun, basically that daylight, because it sits on that axis and it goes around the sun so entirely slow, night and day, guys, night and day lasts 27 Earth years. Think about that. It's daylight for 27 years, about 27 years, and then it's nighttime, dark, for about 27 years. I thought that was so interesting, yet terrifying at the same time, okay? Not only that, but it has, I believe it's about 15 moons, 11 rings, so it does have rings. Another thing that I absolutely love to mention when I'm talking about Uranus is it's really the first of 3 modern planets. What the modern planets are is basically it's the first one to be discovered with a telescope. So the 3 modern planets, they were not seen with the naked eye, because think about it, they're completely far out, okay? Uranus was the first one. Not only that, as far as it being a modern planet where it was discovered with a telescope, but it's also referred to as a generational planet. Okay, so let's think back to what I mentioned earlier as far as its orbit around the sun. Okay, its orbit around the sun takes about 84 years, little over 84 years. It's 12 zodiac signs. Okay, so on the circle that I like to the circle of life that we refer to with the zodiacs and the houses, in the planets and the houses, it takes about 7 years each sign. Okay, it's about 7 years in each sign until it moves on to the next one. So what happens with that is basically that 7-year span is a whole entire generation. That group of people will have the same Uranus sign. It may not be exactly positioned as far as the degrees on the chart, but it is the same zodiac sign, meaning that group of people are going to have very similar attributes. They're also going to have the very similar as far as when it comes to the destiny and the mission of that specific placement of Uranus on the chart. Now we get into my favorite part of the video, where we start to talk about the energy and the influences of how they are felt here on Earth. Again, this is Uranus. Each planet has specific aspects which they rule over as far as what parts of life it specifically is in charge of, okay? So if you remember back to Mercury, that was a planet of thought, communication. How do we perceive information and how do we process it? You have Mars, which is a planet of action. So how do you put your ideas into actual motion? How do you take action and domineering charge? How aggressive are you with doing that? And then now we have Uranus. Uranus is the planet of change. It is the planet that will surprise you and send you the elements of surprise when it transits throughout the chart and hits certain parts in your natal chart. Your natal chart is, again, the basic timestamp of the heavens from the time and date you were born. So when the actual present Uranus, when it transits throughout the chart, the current chart, when it hits your certain points in your when it hits certain points, in your actual natal chart, that's when you get those elements of surprise, depending on what part of the chart that it's in. Okay, now also Uranus is the planet of originality, so it is really and truthfully what makes you you, and how you express, how you change your original ideas, those revolutionary ideas. Think about it, things that shake things up. Okay, one thing that I really like to point to as far as Uranus is, I know it sounds scary because when we think of those elements of surprise in life, it kind of throws us off. There's a lot of talk about, being normal as far as your day-to-day routine. And if you think about it, if you're in a set routine every day with no challenges, it's like you're a machine. It's like you're a program. Now, the structure and discipline of those routines is very important because it's what makes us stable. It's what helps us keep a sense of order. However, what ends up happening most of the time is we get so attached to those routines, we hate to be inconvenienced by anything throwing that off, and we become stagnant, we become complacent, and we do not challenge ourselves to get to the next level. That's where Uranus comes in. Uranus is literally going to give you that element of surprise. It's going to shake you. It wants to challenge you to sometimes maybe look at things a little differently, put things to a different perspective, and take action as far as your original inner power to make those changes. What ends up happening is Uranus will come through, give you that element of surprise, and we fight it, which is normal. We are so used to doing these routine things, making the day run smoother for us. A lot of us have a lot of things on our plate, which is fine. But what ends up happening again is you just want things to be convenient, you want things to be easy. And again, there's really no growth if there is no change, okay? Anything not growing and changing is dead, okay? I know it sounds scary. I know we all love those routines. We all love those structures that we work so hard for, but it is quite okay to occasionally change things up. Now, it's not always going to be in the form of, pretty things, maybe you're being thrown money or whatever, that element of surprise. No, sometimes it's kind of painful. Sometimes it's kind of awkward. Sometimes you really just want to throw the towel in, like, whatever, forget it. But the thing that Uranus really wants us to do is just, again, it wants to bring change, to call our attention to something, maybe something we've neglected, an aspect of your life that you either shut off or that you just completely decide to put on the back burner because, again, these are these daily routines, these daily situations that if something goes wrong or if something does not go the way you want it, your whole world gets turned upside down, okay? Now, on top of Uranus being the planet of change, the one that shocks us, revolutionizes, is actually also in charge and rules over a lot of key aspects in life. It rules over art, modern science, especially the big advances in science, the things that really change things up. It also is, which is my favorite, it's the sign of humanitarianism. So basically, as far as one wanting to do much for the people, one wanting to stand up and speak for the people, it's really going to give that type of energy, and then it's going to express it depending on which sign it falls in. So Uranus is always going to have that energy, but then the specific zodiac sign that it runs through, that's how it's specifically going to be outward and expressed through that character of that zodiac, okay? So when it comes to the influences or the energies of Uranus specifically, again, if you watch my videos, every planet has both positive and negative, high and low, or good and bad. I don't like to use good and bad, but if it helps resonate with you, good and bad, okay? It has good and bad vibrations, energies. So some of those good energies that come from Uranus, again, we talked about it being a revolutionary planet. So it's a revolutionizer, okay? That's exactly what it does. It surprises you. Those elements of surprise can be good, or they can be not really what you want at that time. But it also gives you those big bursts of creativity that you have. It's very good for those of us who have really channeled our creative nature. Not only that, but think about it being that fresh and new experience or opportunities that it brings to you. Those fresh and new opportunities that may not have come to you if you kept those same similar everyday robotic stagnant procedures. Now, along with it having those, again, it does have the negative or the low vibration. So let's also think about it as far as, we mentioned that it was revolutionary planet, and also it's very rebellious, okay? And again, depending on your perspective, that could be a good or a bad thing. But when you think of rebellious, you do think as far as that very high friction or resistance that comes before things do start to make those changes. It can also be very reckless, okay? Because it does give you those elements of surprises, of those fresh new opportunities that you may be very, very excited for. You may not process them very well, to the point where you're very reckless in the actions that you take on to those opportunities. Not only that, but it's very moody, unpredictable. You can't really tell what's going to happen and be the outcome of these things, as well as it's undisciplined. Okay, now we talked about how it being undisciplined can be a good thing as far as, challenging those stagnant behaviors, but it can make you too much undisciplined to the point where now you're being stagnant because you're not making any progress, you're not making any changes, you're not making any of the necessary things that you need to grow. Okay, so just real quick, what kind of genius do you possess as far as Uranus? What makes you you? Do you have your Uranus in Gemini to where you are a power thinker? Do you power through those changes, that originality, through your thoughts? Do you have psychic awareness about the changes, about the surprises, like a Pisces, Uranus in Pisces? Or are you an advanced thinker, like an Aquarius? So a Uranus and Aquarius are going to be those people who really think on an advanced level to make those necessary changes, to move with the changes that Uranus is trying to bring to you, and to really just accept it and move forward. One thing that I like to also kind of compare Uranus to, if you watch Saturn, you know that Saturn is that discipline planet. It's the planet that demands structure, that demands discipline and order from you. And if you do not move with it, if you do not accept those changes, if you fight them, that's where the conflict comes in at, is the resistance against what Saturn brings. And the same thing happens with Uranus. Those elements of surprise are not always going to be wonderful new opportunities that you've been, praying for and asking for. Sometimes it's going to be, maybe a destruction of something that's in your way of moving to where you want to go. And when you resist that, when you fight that, you literally drag on the lesson. I really hope that you all enjoyed the Uranus video. I can assure you we are going to knock these other two planets out. We got Neptune and we got Pluto, and I am really, really, really excited about Pluto. You gotta stay tuned. You gotta tune in. This is what I love to do. I love to talk about it. So again, you can like, you can comment. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. We are still going to have the surprise at the end of my series. I know I've been saying it, promoting my other videos. I will still do that. As soon as Pluto is finished, at the end of that video, I will tell you what the contest is. If anything I can do to shed a positive light to end the fearful propaganda that's around astrology, that's what I'm going to do, because I genuinely feel it in my heart to do so. Again, thanks for tuning in. This is RED with Uranus. Stay tuned. We have Neptune and Pluto next.